Last week, I was preparing for one of our weekly teacher workshops on parent communication, and I dug up the very first letter that I sent out to families in the very first year at ISLA Academy. This happened after the first 6 weeks of classes. There was a group of students at this point of about 12. They ranged in age from 7 to 16, with a lot of 10s and 12s and 14s mixed in there. I think it was only one 7-year-old at the time and one 16-year-old at the time, so everybody else was in the middle. And it took me 6 weeks to figure out how to accurately explain what it was we were doing up there, or up here, I guess, what it meant to come to ISLA, the type of education we were going for. And I just thought it would be interesting to do a read aloud for you here, to see what is the same and maybe what's changed. Dear families, we did it. Almost 7 weeks of school complete, with as many twists and turns as one could imagine. The one constant so far has been change, with an ever-growing class roster thanks to the great word of mouth many of you have shared around town. I meet a couple of new families each week that are interested in what's happening in our program here at ISLA Academy. After 6 weeks of planning, revising, and improvising, I finally feel ready to express exactly what we're doing each day. This has been the best and most unique challenge I've had: how to explain what a typical day looks like, when truly each child is on their own individual learning path. So if anyone is wondering, here's a breakdown for them. Our day starts each morning in a very different manner than the rest of the schools in the country. Instead of lining up in front of a flag to sing the national hymn, each of our students arrives at their own leisure, free to pursue their own particular interests. We have students that start their school day on a surfboard at Encuentro Beach. We have others that arrive to the campus early each day for extra study time or guided reading practice. Other students head to the gym a few times a week for intense morning workouts. This freedom of choice means our students come ready to learn, giving them time and space for extra rest, extra exercise, or extra study allows them to take ownership of their education. After everyone has arrived, we begin work on our unit projects. By now, I'm sure your child has been speaking about the grand plans they have for their project. Project-based learning is a central part of the education model at ISLA Academy. This unit's theme is culture. We began with group brainstorming sessions about the definition of culture, and then we began developing questions that we wanted to answer. From that list, each student began exploring the particular areas of culture that most interested them. This part of the project is essential to the learning outcome. In more traditional models of school, the students are told what to study. And this is almost always dictated by the local school district or country in which the student is going to school. While a child growing up in California will receive lots of education on George Washington or the U.S. Civil War, another child in Canada will learn about the British monarchy or the French Revolution. All four of those topics are interesting and full of important lessons, but the same can be said for countless numbers of historical events, from the creation of the Magna Carta to the Khmer Rouge. What I know to be true is that few things can be more boring than a forced memorization of the facts surrounding an incident that a student has had no hand in selecting. And students today know of no other experience than of being fully immersed in the information age. They understand that facts don't need to be memorized. This is why we have decided not to focus on specific content in our social studies unit. Instead, we focus on research, project development, technology, communication, citation, and creativity. Our students can be heard having discussions on the Korean War, ancient Chinese inventions, or the many failed attempts at a universal language. And they're interested in these topics because they were allowed to explore them on their own. They were allowed to dive deep into a subject area instead of merely skimming the surface of a few. Students need to be taught how to think, not what to think. And each of the students, after selecting the topic, then began investigating and collecting information. We had a number of individual and group meetings before each student decided on how they would express their learning. From there, the student and I developed an action plan and calendar for completing the large task. We also created a scoring rubric. This allowed the student to decide before starting what an exemplary project would look like. How often have we seen students that can find no purpose in why they are completing a task, only because, quote, my teacher made me? In contrast, our students selected their topic, designed their project, and then chose how it would be graded. I'm going to stop right there for part one and come back and do part two in the next video.